Hello, everybody. Gbenga Olatunji FCA here. We want to look at requirements to keep accounting records. Whose job role is it to keep accounting records? For how long should the record be kept? What are the items to be in the accounting records? And if the company is dealing in goods, what accounting record should be kept? And many more details will be revealed in this video. Before we go into the details, we had already worked on sources of financial reporting regulation, in which we explained three major sources of financial reporting regulation. We made mention of the law, we made mention of the stock exchange listing, we made mention of the accounting standard. Now, let us go into the details of today's lecture, which is on requirements of requirements to keep accounting records. What are the requirements to keep accounting records? We are going to be looking at where the records should be kept, the duration to keep, minimum duration to keep the accounting records. We are going to be looking at and answer the question, whose duty is it to prepare and keep annual account, that is statement of financial report. First of all, every company must prepare accounting statement and must keep records of their financials. That being said, must be established. It doesn't really matter whether the organization is sole proprietorship. It doesn't really matter whether it is partnership. It doesn't really matter whether it is public limited liability, joint venture. Every business must keep accounting record established. The accounting record shall be sufficient. So, and that is why we did another video on content of financial statement. Before we can call an account an annual account or financial statement, what must it entail and contain? The detail had already been pushed out. You can look it up on the playlist. The accounting record shall be sufficient to show and explain the transaction of the company, and as such, we must be able to disclose with reasonable accuracy the financial position of the organization, in which we previously call the balance sheet. So a statement of financial report must contain statement of financial position. Also, the accounting record care must enable the director to ensure the financial statement prepared comply with the requirements of the Act with regards to the form of the organization and the content of the financial statement being prepared. And we had already discussed that earlier on. The accounting record must contain the entries of day-to-day activities like the sales ledger book. These are books that we call books of original entry. So the company must keep books of original entries in which they will go to prepare their trial balance, a record of assets and liability. If the business of the company involves dealing in goods, now like when we started, we made mention of, okay, if an organization is having or trading in goods and the like, what are the records that are expected of such an organization to prepare? Such organization must prepare statement of stock, they must do stock count and have their records intact. All statement of stock takings from which any such statement of stock has been or is to be prepared. So there must be stock count record, there must be stock record or stock statement. Except in the case of goods sold by way of ordinary retail trade. Statement of all goods sold and purchased, showing the goods and the buyer, the seller in sufficient detail to enable all this to be identified. So we must have a detailed stock record which shows what we purchase, the quantity purchased, the quantity sold, who we sell it to, and as at when, and like the quantity, the price, and the like. So it must be detailed enough. The place to keep the accounting record. Where must we, as a matter of requirements of law and financial standard, should we keep the accounting record? The accounting record must be kept at the company registered office. And please, we need to know that the registered office may be different from the business operational office or offices. But there is a registered office. Registered office usually will be contained in the incorporation document. If at all and for any reason an organization had moved on or had opened another branch or branches, unless they change it and have an, an update on the incorporation documents, that initial place still remains the registered office. So it is expected by a requirement of financial standard and requirement of business law that the financial accounts and records must be kept in the registered office of a business entity. The accounting record must be accessible to the managers, to the directors to check on and to retrieve information. And that leads us to whose duty to keep the accounting records. Please know that it doesn't really matter whether a director is accounting inclined or not. Once you are a director in an organization, you are legally bound to prepare the statement of financial record. It is the duty of the directors to prepare the annual account. Usually the accountants will be employed to do this. The external auditors will be engaged to validate and revalidate this, but that will not exonerate the directors from their duty as unto the law and financial standard that the business that they are running, they must be able to account for it. So we've touched on the requirement of accounting records, where to keep the accounting records. We established it that the accounting record must be kept in the registered office. We had discussed about the duration in which the accounting record must be kept, and we said that the accounting record must be kept for the minimum of 6 years, and it is the duty of the directors to ensure that they keep the accounting records. Next, we will be talking about the requirement from the directors after completion of the financial statements. Don't forget that we had learned now that they are to keep the records, they are to prepare and keep it. Now, after they've kept it, after they've prepared it, what other things must they do? If you are yet to subscribe, by the way, please go on subscribe right away to G James Associate channel. We pride ourselves that we are value to life, we are value to your businesses. We will now go on to discuss requirements from directors after completion of the financial statement. What are the things that are expected of the directors to do after they had prepared the financial statement? At what time must they do it? and what are the details involved in these financial requirements as obligation from the directors.